Hi, my name is Koku with blackfilm.com, and I'm here with Russell Hornsby and Michole Briana White, and we're here to talk about season 2 of the STARZ hit series BMF. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having us.
I'll start with you, Michole. I think with the backdrop of the 1980s, Detroit and the poverty and the violence, you still have this two-parent household. You're in the church. There's still something very picturesque about that, right? And it just, but when you see these two parents, just when you look at it on paper, you would never expect them, of all people, to be raising kingpins. So talk about that and that, just how surprising that can be. You never know what can happen in life.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this can happen to anyone, and I actually, you were saying earlier how I spent time in Detroit. We were shooting, and we had this one scene that was a block party, and a lot of people from the neighborhood, all the real people in the neighborhood came, and all these people that, ran with BMF or just knew the guys from BMF and all these things, they all had all these different stories and things, but just being there in the energy, I could see why. I just had a better understanding of why everybody did what they did. This is what was presented to them. Like, no matter if you came from a two-parent household or a single-parent household, or your mom was selling drugs and taught you that, or they didn't. It was like, this is just what was available in this community at this time to move forward in any kind of way. And there are so many people who have these kinds of stories, particularly even in the hip hop community, who have this same story. And this was like the way out during this time. And so this was what was available, even though we as parents gave them everything that we could. We, definitely, we took them to church. We taught them. We had a strong foundation. We loved each other as husband and wife. We loved them. We did everything we could with them, but that didn't change what was outside those doors.
And then Russell, even speaking to that, both of you all didn't want, as parents, they didn't want them into life. And so, as a father, he's trying to take Terry, because Terry was probably the most malleable in that sense, because he really didn't want to sell drugs. So when they're talking about this car business and he's, they're talking about the 9-to-5 job, but the car business wasn't going as fast as the money that he was used to. So you could see the frustrations there too. So there's having to deal with that as a parent as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, though. It's like, nothing comes overnight. And I guess it's like, you want to be a millionaire overnight, and that's just not how it works. Everything comes through time and hard work. And, he has, I believe, instilled that in his children. But I think what his children have ultimately said is, we saw that it didn't work for you and mom.
Right. Yeah.
Didn't work. Yeah. I mean, hey, you said that. We believed it. But then when the rubber meets the road, when the bills you come up short, then we're saying that philosophy doesn't work. So we got to find a different way. And so that when you look at it, especially through a juvenile mind, that thought process makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, oh, this is what my parents taught me, but they're sitting over there crying, singing the blues, mad because they can't afford nothing. Obviously, it didn't work. So let me go about it and make my own way. And I think that's what they did. And you would, again, from a juvenile mindset, to them, their logic is sound.
I didn't think about it that way. And you're right. It is a juvenile mind, because it's like you kind of, as a child, you sort of look at things a little bit more black and white. You don't really understand, everything in totality. And even speaking to that, Meech tries to give Lucille money in the drive-through. Like, why are you even working here? Like, it comes, surprises her, and just take this. And she's too proud. Like, I don't want that money. I know where it comes from. So you're right. When you're strong in your faith and your convictions, there are just certain things that you won't do. And she just was not willing to do that, even though, as you all have said, they just didn't have the money to make ends meet. It's interesting.
Right.
I think it's also interesting when Meech, I've seen this so many times, and and I think with everybody, to some extent, we've all done it, where, you walk in your grandma's house and your mama's house, the hat's off, maybe even it might even be a different accent, it's a whole demeanor, attitude. Meech goes and tries to smoke in front of his grandma's house, and she's beating him like a little boy, you know, and he still had to have that kind of humility. Like, I'm sorry, grandma, because, you know, even though you're tough in the streets, you ain't tough over here. So that spoke to something, you know, culturally as well.
No, it did. But see, that also what we're seeing, though, we're seeing how the culture is shifting, right? In its instance, right? This is the 80s, right? Because you figure even in the 60s and the 70s and back in the 50s, everybody was a dual citizen. Everybody, you know, was what I like to call bilingual, right? Yeah. So you did your thing out in the street, but you knew, hey, let me change these clothes. I gotta go to grandma's house. Let me put something else on. Make sure I ain't had no liquor on my breath. I ain't smoking, you know what I mean? Whatever. And you switched it up. You changed the way you spoke in front of your elders, in front of your grandparents. All those things shifted once we got into the 80s. Everybody lost a sense of themselves. We lost a sense of community. We lost a sense of family, right? So just the fact that this boy sits up there and is gonna smoke on his grandma's porch, do you see what I'm saying? Shows how far we've fallen just in that. Because again, what you used to have to do back in the day is, hey man, let's go down to the corner and go smoke this reefer. Let's get out of my house. Let's go down the street and around the corner to the park. Let's go to the schoolyard. Let's go have a drink. Let's go pass this bottle around. Hey, everybody, you got some mints? You know what I mean? You came in, even the attempt to cover it up was out of respect. So we're looking at this time in the 80s because these kids thought that because their parents didn't have, because their parents couldn't provide, that they were better than, they were greater than. And so therefore, I don't need to respect you because you're broke. And he has that mindset, right? Because he's like, this is what I do home. This is what I do in Detroit. And now he comes to Cleveland and he can't shift that behavior in his head. Because he's already disrespected, you know what I mean? Everything else. He's like, hey, I don't need to do this. And grandma's like, oh, no, player. We don't do that around here. Oh, snap.
Right, like you forgot where you from. You was.
Forgot where you from, right? You forgot how you was raised. Because he didn't need to have to think about it. Because he doesn't have the same respect for his parents that he once had, because now I got the money. Where in those 50s, 60s, and 70s, even though they were making the money, they knew I gotta go grandma for lunch, for dinner on Sunday. Let me put my little thing, let me hide my little chain. You know, hey, how we doing? You knew how to, hey, look, the grace, the this, the manners, all that stayed. We got to the 80s, it shifted.
That's a great point.
Players, the money came to younger kids. You know what I mean? Like the gangsters in the city, they were older. They still had that respect. They knew the game. But when all these guys get locked up, incarcerated, it's left to the youth. The youth is like, man, we don't need to respect y'all.
I'm gonna tell you one thing I was thinking about, Russell. I was thinking about that scene because I know we give, like, I think just generally speaking, most people kind of give Meech a harder time because he was so flashy and things like that. But when we're talking about when Terry was trying to go to fly straight and work in the car business with his father, and when he got into that rift with the other operator, and he starts employing those street tactics, and the anger in Charles's face, like, what did you do? And I know you did something, and this has something to do with your business, you know? And it wasn't even that he wasn't doing what he was supposed to do. He just went about it in a way that wasn't like the way I guess a civilian would, you know? Right. And I thought about that, and I was like, this seems to be like it's a different kind of disrespect in the sense of what you'd expect from a Meech, but it was still Terry being disrespectful.
Yeah, because again, that's still their mindset. It's right. Like he still got that in his blood. Like I want to do things my way. Yeah, you know now. And again, you didn't start pulling away from your parents until you had your own job, until you had. You know, and again, all these things are starting to happen younger. Yes. So the level of disrespect is heightened because they are so much younger and they don't have the experience. And so that's why I think Charles takes so much exception to the behavior and to the antics, because he's still saying ultimately in his head, you are still a boy. Regardless of the money, you're still a boy. I'm trying to learn you something.
I thank you both so much for this discussion. It's been very powerful. I think there's a lot to learn from this show. I mean, there's a lot to learn about love, life. I mean, beyond the things, I know a lot of people are just very enamored by the BMF story, but there's so much complexity to it. And Michole, even as you were speaking earlier, like actually even able to go to Detroit and see how people received everyone and just what those different stories were about. So I thank you both for your time. Again, my name is Koku with blackfilm.com. I'm here with Russell Hornsby, Michole Briana White. We're here to talk about season 2 of the STARZ hit series BMF. Season 2 is going to be premiering January 2023. I got to see 3 episodes, so I feel kind of special. Thank you both for your time. It's been great talking to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Take care.
You too.
If you want to see more content like this on blackfilm.com, make sure you like, subscribe, and ring that bell.